Did you know that the most common mistake people make when they write is with punctuation, especially with commas? In today's short video, let's talk about how we can avoid these, when to use commas correctly, and how to use it to make your point and show your ideas clearly. So, welcome to Capshine. I'm Ajit Pio. Capshine is a revolutionary Learn It Together English fluency program. With Capshine, learning is easy, quick, fun, affordable, and effective. And we promise a whole new you in 6 months or less. So let's get down to business. Let's look at rule 1 of how you will use commas. The first rule, or the first place where you use commas, is when you're connecting different ideas, complete ideas, and you connect it with something called coordinating conjunctions. These coordinating conjunctions are nothing but these. So when you use these words to connect two complete ideas, you would put a comma in front of this coordinating conjunction. Let's look at an example, shall we? So, let's look at these sentences. He drove down the alley, so that's idea 1, and then he turned the corner, idea 2. Notice how I've connected these two complete ideas. And again, if I split them into two sentences, I can without the and, but I've connected them with the coordinating conjunction and therefore I put a comma right there. I've connected two separate ideas into one sentence. You can go shopping with Jane, or you can go to a movie alone, right? Essentially, if you don't go shopping with Jane, you're going to the movie alone. Right? So again, two ideas. You can go shopping with Jane, that's an idea. You can go to a movie alone, another idea. But since I've connected those ideas, I use the coordinating conjunction or and also use a comma before it. Notice how the comma comes right after the previous word and there's a space before the coordinating conjunction. That's how you put a comma. A pro tip. The next rule for comma use is, well, use a comma after introductory phrases or clauses. Essentially, when you want to add a little bit more information about someone or something that you're starting off a sentence with, you put a comma to splice or to separate that information. Again, let's look at an example here. Waking up late again, I decided to buy a clock, right? Again, if waking up is an issue, you should get a clock, right? Or set an alarm on your phone. So waking up late again, that's your introductory phrase, and that's telling me more about who I am, right? So waking up late again, I decided to buy a clock. Notice how this little piece of information is separated by a comma. So I will use a comma when I'm adding additional information in front of a sentence. These are called introductory phrases or clauses. Jogging through the street, Emily had a brilliant idea. Again, this is telling me about what Emily is doing. This is not essential information, it's just additional nice to have information, right? But it's an introductory information. It gives me an introduction or sets the scene of what's going on. Again, right after that, I put a comma to show that it's additional information. So here it also acts like a bracket here where it gives you additional information and it's clear what message you're trying to say. The main message, of course, is that Emily had a brilliant idea. It just happens that she was jogging during that time. Speaking of brilliant ideas, make sure you check out the 30-day free trial with Capshine. With this, you get speaking opportunities and opportunities to learn and practice as a group with other learners. You get a personal coach who gives you recommendation and suggestions on how you can improve your language week after week. And of course, daily micro lessons and live classes that can help build your foundations to become a better speaker of the language. Great, let's continue our conversation about comma use. The next rule about using commas is that you will use commas between all items in a series. And this is something you probably already know. If you want to list things out, or if there's a series of things, you would use a comma after the first element and for every element after that. For example, I ate an apple, so that's the first element. You put a comma after that, a banana, the second element, a carrot, and an entire turkey, right? Now, many of you would have heard that you should never put a comma before and, but this is wrong. You can put a comma before an and that's perfectly fine, right? So this clearly shows that there are 4 elements, and it's not a combination of different elements as is. And this we will talk more about in a different video about the Oxford comma. Let's look at another example. The officer looked through his briefcase, his wallet, and his backpack. So again, he looked through 3 things: his briefcase, comma, his wallet. You could put a comma here, and his briefcase. Again, this is optional, but in some cases, putting a comma before the and is recommended, to be very clear. There are a few other kinds of series as well. So if it's a series of thoughts, for example, or a series of actions, in this case, I promised myself that I would cook more, right? So you promised that you'd do one thing, you promised that you would also wake up on time, and that I would exercise every day. So notice how it's not just apple, bananas, and whatnot. It's a complete thought in itself, and when I give that in a series or a list of items, I use a comma there as well. The final rule for today is use a comma to enclose something called non-essential clauses. What these are essentially complete ideas which you add on in between or in front of or in the end of a sentence to give additional information. This is very similar to your introductory phrases, but the only difference is that this could be in the middle of the sentence as well. These again act like they are bracketed information. And let's see what these are. Mary Jane, whose cake I ate, didn't have a birthday cake, right? So the main idea is that Mary Jane didn't have a birthday cake, right? But I also want to give additional information, which is whose cake I ate. So you could in fact put a bracket there, and that serves the purpose. But you don't want to put brackets when you're writing, right? So therefore what you do is that you put commas, enclose this clause with a comma, and that does the same job. So again, for all practical purposes, you could eliminate this and this sentence would still make sense without losing any meaning. All I'm doing is that I'm adding a little bit more information that's nice to have. Similarly, the dog which looks sad belongs to me. It doesn't matter, right? This is not critical information. It's rather just nice to have information, and therefore what I'm saying is that the dog belongs to me. It happens to be sad, and instead of putting brackets, I use commas to set them off, to show clearly that this is just additional information. So if you want to add more information in your sentences without distracting from the main point, set them off with commas. This is a great way to add more information without losing track of what you're trying to say. That said, here's a quick comparison of what is an essential and non-essential clause. For instance, if I looked at the dog which looks sad belongs to me versus the dog that looks sad belongs to me, this is just description of the dog itself. It's nice to have. But here, if there are, let's say there are 3 dogs, there's one dog that's sad, then this information is important. It says that the dog that is sad is mine. It qualifies or specifies something about the item, right? Similarly, startups which don't make profits for years are great places to work in. So here it just says startups are great places to work in, right? It's just additional information about startups. It doesn't really matter. And what I'm trying to say is that startups are great places to work in. But when you use an essential modifier or essential word like that, and notice how I'm not putting commas before and after because you cannot close it off. Startups that don't make profits for years are likely to fail. I'm not saying startups are likely to fail. I'm saying startups that have this quality are likely to fail. So I cannot close them with brackets. So think about whether the additional information is important or it's non-important or non-essential. If it's non-essential, you can enclose them with commas. Great. I hope you will use these rules to punctuate better and to write more effectively. Make sure you like and subscribe if you found this video useful. And of course, do not forget to check out your 30-day trial by going to capshine.com or downloading the app from the App Store. Cheers!